Let's stay with transport. If you drive a car, you'll probably know that the UK government intends to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Well, the BBC understands that as part of a major rethink of net zero policies, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is going to kick that down the road to 2035. He'll set that out in a speech this week, according to the BBC's political editor, Chris Mason. The Prime Minister said the UK would have to reach net zero by 2050 in a more proportionate way. Well, this will no doubt be met with a mixture of celebration and horror, depending on where you sit on the issue. So let's talk to the climate campaigner, Laura Young, and also to the motoring journalist, Ken Gibson. Ken, first of all, when this policy was originally announced to ban sales of new petrol and diesel cars, how unpopular was it?
Well, it was hugely unpopular with the ordinary motorist, largely because the original decision to actually make the ban 2035 was a tight enough schedule anyway that the government were looking at. And then literally overnight, Boris Johnson, as a very great headline grabber for the Glasgow Environment Conference, decided that he wanted to have England leading the way and pushing it forward to 2030, which was never a realistic target.
But given that road transport emissions account for 90% of all CO2 emissions in this country, I mean, what's the alternative? What do we do?
Well, we actually make progress in a more sane manner, because it's fine putting forward electric as the answer to all ills. It clearly isn't. And also, you know, the simple reality now is that electric cars are not affordable to real motorists living in the real world. They're nowhere near affordable. There are also nowhere near a strong enough infrastructure to allow motorists, should they even want to go to electric, to actually take that option. You know, this is a classic case of governments putting all of their eggs in one basket. People are quick to forget as well. Can you remember the last time there was a major government decision telling us all to go to diesel cars? Diesel cars were the future.
Okay.
Look at that situation.
I should have pointed out there, it's 90% of road emissions are made up for in terms of transport. But Laura, the Prime Minister is still sticking to his overall net zero targets. He's just saying that we're going to have to get there a different way.
I think that's really hard to keep to when it seems like lots is being pulled back. So we've got this pushed back petrol and diesel car ban. We're looking at other commitments that are being scaled back to do with infrastructure, homes, insulation. We've also had no new commitments around how we can reduce flying or really promote sustainability. And I think it's hard because we need to be adventurous and we need to really push forward if we're going to reach net zero. It was going to be hard enough as it is with the commitments that were on the table, and now these are being scaled back. It's even harder than before.
So do you think that the Prime Minister then is being disingenuous, that you don't actually think he'll meet his net zero targets by 2050?
Completely. I don't think he will. I don't think all of us will without this support. And if we're going to move towards net zero and more sustainable transport, we need to have targets in place to push innovation. But we also need targets so that we can help things become more cost effective and also help employment in the green sector. If we keep pushing things off into the future, we're never going to get those green jobs. We're never going to get that green infrastructure. We're never going to get those cost savings for people. And when you actually look at the package of things that are being pushed back, a lot of this is also going to hurt our pockets as individuals. You know, we're going to still have leaky gas boilers, and we're not going to have landlords and homeowners having to make energy efficient homes. That's going to leak out energy. That's going to cost us money in the winter. So a lot of this is also about how we live, how much it costs to live, the dignity of the homes that we live in, and how we travel around.
But that's interesting about costs, and I'm sure from a different perspective, Ken, you would probably argue that it's the cost to the motorists that are the problem here, and you have to bring the motorists on site.
Correct. But firstly, Laura made a very good point. She mentioned 6 or 7 different ways that need to be tackled to actually address this issue. And as I say, that's correct. Electric is not the only way. What about hydrogen? If you're looking at, I'm all for cleaner cars, but also it's forgetting as well, the government, in their rush to do this, that the car companies have made massive strides over the last 10 years. The last 2 decades, I covered the industry. on improving the CO2 emissions of both petrol and diesel vehicles. They've made great progress with hybrid vehicles. And one thing, I'm talking on the issues to real people, we pay as motorists £35 billion a year on taxes. 35 billion. That's a huge amount. Does anyone believe that if we switch and make the switch to electric, that the government are not then going to start taxation as well onto electric? They are not going to lose one of their biggest cash cows, 35 billion a year, I repeat it again, and not bring in taxation for electric cars, which would probably take the form of travelling technology, billing motorists for every mile they travel.
Laura, isn't the point here that you have to bring people with you, that if the motorist feels that he or she is being punished, then they're not going to go along with your policies? And if you look at, the European Union, they've got a 2035 target, so it's really just relaxing it to be the same as it is for the whole of Europe now.
Is it not is it not good to be pushing the boat out? We want to be leading the way when it comes to this, but it's not also about pushing individuals saying you can't have a new petrol and diesel car. It's also about saying to industry, we need to have really good, really reliable electric cars, and we need to have them that are an accessible price. And what we've seen is, as the technology has progressed, we've been able to get cars that can go much further, they can charge much quicker, and the cost has been brought down. But I also want to say that we shouldn't live in a world where everyone has to own a car. We should have great public transport as well. That needs to be part of it. And obviously transport is just one thing that we need to look at. But it's about telling people, if you're needing to get a new car, electric is one option, but also industry, please help us get there. And by kicking the can down the road and saying, actually, industry, you've got longer to faff around, we're not going to get that innovation, those jobs and those cost savings as quickly as we need them.
OK, Laura Young, climate campaigner, thank you very much indeed. And also to Ken Gibson, the motoring journalist.